Welcome to Nature Nap. I'm John, a lifelong lover of the quiet wild. Maybe you are too. Tonight you'll fall asleep to the deep sea at night, 100 relaxing discoveries that help you relax and drift off a little wiser. Maybe today felt long, your mind's still humming, your shoulders a bit tight. That's okay, you're safe here. We'll go from the pressure-crushed silence 6 miles below the waves to lanternfish drifting in glowing shoals unseen. But here's the quietly unsettling question we'll reveal later. If so much life thrives where no light reaches, what else might we be missing in our own dark? If this gentle journey helps you unwind, you'd help me by subscribing, so every night we can share another nature nap. Close your eyes and imagine Earth as seen from space, a pale blue sphere where oceans stretch unbroken across continents and curves. Over 70% of the planet's surface is ocean. It is not land that dominates this world, but water. To think of Earth as the blue planet is not a poetic exaggeration, but a literal truth. Beneath that endless surface lies a universe of life, pressure, and silence that dwarfs every mountain and forest combined. It reminds us, we live on land, but Earth belongs to the sea. If you were to sail out, stop in the middle of the ocean, and let a weight sink, it would fall through water for an average of 12,000 feet before hitting the seafloor. That is taller than most mountains. The ocean is not simply a blanket of water, but a column, a vertical desert of blue, as deep as many ranges are high. This average depth means that most of Earth's biosphere is not forests or grasslands, but deep cold water. Our world's habitable space is mostly invisible to us. And yet, the average is only part of the story. In some places, the ocean floor plunges into trenches, deep scars in the crust. The deepest of all is the Mariana Trench, with its Challenger Deep sinking nearly 36,000 feet. If Mount Everest were dropped there, its peak would still be over a mile underwater. At that depth, sunlight has never touched a stone. The pressure is over 1,000 times greater than on the surface, and still fragile creatures live and feed in that silent canyon. Despite the vastness, light barely touches the sea. Sunlight only penetrates the first 200 meters or so, a thin golden skin compared to the dark miles beneath. This zone, called the epipelagic, is where photosynthesis is possible, where colorful coral reefs and fish exist. But past that thin boundary, light fades quickly into blue, then violet, then nothing. Almost all of Earth's water is in perpetual night. To imagine it is to imagine a world where day never comes. Perhaps most humbling of all, fewer people have been to the deepest ocean trenches than have walked on the moon. In over 60 years of human exploration, only a handful of dives have reached those black depths. We can look up at the night sky and imagine astronauts on lunar soil, yet far below the waves, in our own backyard, lies terrain even less touched. The deep sea is not remote like space. It is right here, beneath every tide and horizon, and still it remains mostly unseen. The ocean is not simply a place we visit at the shore. It is the great hidden body of Earth, shaping climate, sheltering life, and reminding us that what we know is only the surface. Just as your breath slows and your body sinks into rest, the ocean too holds layer upon layer of hidden quiet. If most of Earth exists in darkness, unseen, how much of ourselves might also remain unexplored? From the last traces of sunlight fading into blue, to the first glimmers of glowing creatures drifting upward, the ocean's twilight zone is a place of transition, not fully lit, not fully dark. A realm where billions of animals rise and fall with each day's rhythm, unseen by almost every human eye. This zone begins just after the last sunlight fades. From 200 meters down to about 1,000, the sea holds a dim half-light. Here, photosynthesis can no longer take place, plants vanish, the colors of the surface give way to silvery blues and grays. It is a realm defined by scarcity, light too weak for growth, yet enough to outline drifting bodies. To imagine standing there is impossible, for no human could without technology. But in your mind, picture a cathedral-like expanse of dimness, lit only by faint glows of passing life. Sunlight dwindles in strange ways in water. Reds and oranges vanish first, absorbed quickly. Blues linger longer. So in the twilight zone, the world takes on a blue-green tint, ghostly and monotone. It is bright enough for large eyes to catch movement, but too dim for any plant to feed itself on light. This creates an eerie contrast, a world not quite dark, yet utterly without the warmth of sun-fed growth, a place that survives on what drifts down, not what grows within. At night, something extraordinary happens. Billions of creatures, fish, shrimp, squid, and more, rise from the twilight zone toward the surface. They come to feed on plankton and drifting food in the shallows. At dawn, they retreat again to the safety of darkness. This daily ascent and descent is so vast that it has been called the greatest migration on Earth. Not seasonal, not yearly, but every single night. Imagine whole oceans stirring as life rises in a wave, then vanishes downward again with the morning. This nightly movement is not just impressive, it is unmatched. The largest animal migration on the planet happens in this twilight zone every day. Tiny lanternfish, shrimp, jelly-like salps and cephalopods move upward by the trillions. Larger predators follow them. On sonar, this migration appears as a moving deep scattering layer, a false seafloor that shifts upward at dusk and downward at dawn. For decades, submarine operators mistook it for the actual seafloor, until scientists realized it was a living cloud of animals, endlessly rising and sinking. Scientists now suspect that the twilight zone may contain more living mass than all land animals combined. The countless lanternfish alone could number in the quadrillions. Add the swarms of shrimp, squid, and drifting jelly forms, and the scale becomes staggering. This invisible biomass shapes the entire planet's carbon cycle. As these animals rise and sink, they move nutrients, recycle carbon, and regulate climate in ways we are only beginning to understand. The surface world is literally balanced on the unseen migrations of twilight zone life. The twilight zone is not an empty middle layer, but a living corridor, a conveyor belt of life, feeding the surface and the depths alike. It is quiet, unseen, yet utterly essential. To think of billions of lives rising and sinking in rhythm with day and night is to remember that the world moves in ways far larger and steadier than our own breath. If life can thrive in the in-between, neither day nor night, how many of our own moments are lived in half-light we never notice? From the last shreds of blue fading into black to the first sparks of bioluminescent light, the midnight zone is where the ocean becomes a different world. Here, no sunlight ever enters. It is a place of stillness, silence, and adaptation so strange they seem like fiction. At about 1,000 meters below the surface, light vanishes completely. No ray of sun penetrates deeper. The ocean here is black, not dim, not shadowed, but absolute night. For any human diver, it is disorienting, like floating in space. And yet, far from being empty, this zone teems with life, not surface life, not sunlit life, but creatures shaped by darkness itself. At these depths, the weight of water above is staggering. Pressure reaches more than 100 times the air pressure at sea level. Imagine the crushing force of an elephant on your chest, and then multiply it 100-fold. Most life we know would be crushed in an instant, but here fish, squid, and jellies swim as though the pressure were nothing. Their bodies soft and flexible, their chemistry tuned to endure what seems impossible. In total darkness, light is life. Most creatures of the midnight zone produce their own glow through bioluminescence. Tiny sparks dot the water column, blinking lures, rippling flashes, soft glows along fins. To human eyes, it would be like drifting through a starfield underwater. Light here serves many purposes: to attract prey, to warn predators, to find a mate, or to vanish into camouflage. In darkness, communication is written in glimmers. Without sunlight, there are no plants, no plankton blooms. Food here arrives mostly in the form of marine snow, a constant drizzle of tiny particles falling from the surface. Dead plankton, fish scales, fecal pellets, fragments of life drifting downward. This snow feeds everything, directly or indirectly. Large carcasses, like dead whales, are rare windfalls. Most of the time, animals here survive on the slow rain of dust from the world above. It is a reminder of how thin the chain of life can be. Even in this blackness, many fish grow enormous eyes, not for sunlight, but for catching the faintest glimmer of bioluminescence. A tiny flash from a shrimp can be enough to signal dinner or danger. Others evolve differently. Some lose their eyes entirely, depending on senses of vibration and smell instead. In the midnight zone, vision is both essential and expendable, depending on the path evolution takes. The midnight zone is not barren. It is a theater of survival, where darkness has become the canvas for light. Here, every adaptation is a story of resilience, of creativity, of life carving out possibility where none seems to exist. From the flat plains stretching beyond imagination to the near-freezing silence of the deep, the abyss is where Earth feels most alien. It is not just deep, it is vast, covering more of the planet than any other environment. The abyssal zone lies between 4,000 and 6,000 meters deep. Imagine stacking 4 Eiffel Towers end to end, then lowering them into the sea, and still you'd only reach the upper edge of this realm. It is here that the ocean's vast plains spread outward, the true seafloor for most of Earth. If the midnight zone was a sky of stars, the abyss is its quiet horizon. In this place, warmth vanishes. The average temperature hovers just above freezing, usually around 2 circlone, 35 Fev. For warm-blooded creatures, this would be hostile. For abyssal life, it is simply normal. Here, slow metabolism is survival. Cold slows everything: movement, growth, even thought. The abyss is not barren, but it is patient. Creatures here live long, slow lives. The abyss is not jagged like mountains or ridges. It is mostly a plain, muddy seafloor stretching unbroken for thousands of miles. Fine sediments drift downward for centuries, creating a soft blanket. To walk here, if you could, would feel like stepping on powder that has never been disturbed. No wind, no rain, no surface footprints, just an eternal stillness. Despite its emptiness, the abyss is not lifeless. Strange starfish crawl across the mud, sea cucumbers filter the sediments, worms burrow unseen below, fishes with wide jaws and slow pulses drift in the dark. These creatures do not thrive in abundance, but in endurance. They survive where food is scarce, often scavenging what little marine snow makes it this far. Their shapes are often alien, elongated, translucent, fragile yet resilient. Scientists estimate that millions of species may live in the abyss, most still undiscovered. Every deep-sea expedition returns with new organisms, strange worms, glowing jelly-like forms, microscopic life unique to these plains. The abyss is the largest habitat on Earth, yet the least explored. It is as though we've charted the mountain peaks of a continent, but left its entire interior unmapped. The abyss is not a void. It is a slow-breathing world of patience and quiet survival. To imagine it is to imagine stillness on a scale beyond us, a reminder that most of Earth is calm, not storm. If most of the planet lies silent and unseen, what does that say about the parts of ourselves we never explore? From the jagged scars cut deep into the ocean floor to the life forms clinging to survival at impossible depths, the hadal trenches are Earth's final frontier. Few places are more remote, more hostile, or more mysterious. The hadal zone begins where the abyss ends, below 6,000 meters, in the ocean's deepest trenches. These trenches are narrow, but astonishingly deep, carved by tectonic plates sliding beneath one another. They are not rare. Over 30 such trenches exist across the world's oceans, from the Mariana in the Pacific to the Puerto Rico Trench in the Atlantic. Each is a scar that reaches farther down than Everest rises up. The deepest known point on Earth lies in the Mariana Trench, in a place called Challenger Deep. It plunges nearly 11 kilometers below sea level. That's almost 7 miles straight down. To put it in perspective, if Mount Everest were set inside, its peak would still be covered by more than a mile of water. Challenger Deep is not just the deepest point in the ocean, it is the deepest point on the planet. For decades, scientists wondered whether anything could survive at such extremes. The answer is yes. Life has been found in sediments from the very bottom of trenches. Tiny organisms, microbes, worms, amphipods endure where light has never reached, and pressure is nearly unfathomable. These discoveries remind us that life is not fragile, but astonishingly adaptive. Even in the harshest corners, it finds a way to endure. Among the trench dwellers are amphipods, small, shrimp-like crustaceans. At first glance, they appear ordinary, yet they are masters of survival. They live comfortably where pressure would crush submarines. Their bodies are soft, their chemistry flexible. Scientists have even found traces of plastic in their stomachs, evidence that even Earth's deepest trenches are not free from human touch. In them we glimpse both resilience and vulnerability. Perhaps most extraordinary are the microbes that live in trenches. These organisms feed on chemicals in sediments, tolerating pressure and cold that would destroy most life. Some are capable of breaking down pollutants, others of thriving without oxygen. Such microbes may even hint at the possibilities of life beyond Earth. If bacteria can flourish in darkness at the bottom of the ocean, perhaps life could also exist beneath the icy oceans of Europa or Enceladus. The trenches remind us that limits are often illusions. Where we expect emptiness, we find resilience. Where we imagine endings, life begins again, reshaped for the impossible. If life can exist in the planet's deepest scars, could the darkest parts of ourselves also be places where new life quietly begins? In the dim waters of the deep, legends drift with the currents. Sailors once whispered of monsters with arms long enough to drag ships under, their eyes shining like moons in the night sea. For centuries, these tales seemed like myth, but the truth is stranger and far more beautiful. The giant squid is real. These creatures can grow over 40 feet long, their bodies pale and ghostly, their tentacles tipped with hooks that curl and twist. For most of human history, they were known only from carcasses washed ashore or scars left on the bodies of sperm whales. To see one alive was almost impossible. Only in recent years have cameras glimpsed them in their twilight realm, drifting with arms unfurled like living ribbons. Their eyes are the largest in the animal kingdom, each as wide as a dinner plate. In darkness, those eyes are not decoration but necessity. They are sensitive enough to catch the faint silhouettes of predators, even the shadow of a whale passing from above. In a world of perpetual night, sight is survival, and the squid's vision is its greatest gift. Even more elusive is its relative, the colossal squid. Unlike its cousin, this creature is bulkier, heavier, with tentacles lined not just with suckers but with swiveling hooks, rotating claws that can grip and tear. It lives in the cold waters of the Southern Ocean, rarely rising where humans can follow. The colossal squid is thought to outweigh even the giant, making it the heaviest invertebrate alive. From these giants came our oldest ocean myths, the kraken, the leviathan, the sea monsters etched into maps at the edges of the known world. And while the truth may not match the terror of those stories, it carries a quiet wonder of its own. These beings, larger than buses, live their whole lives unseen, their dramas unfolding in darkness. They remind us that Earth is not only mapped by us, but also filled with mysteries beyond our gaze. The giants of the deep are not threats to ships or sailors. They are survivors, shaped by pressure and shadow, keeping their secrets in the silence of the water. To know they exist is to glimpse the living heart of old legends, not vanished, but alive and drifting. If the monsters we feared turn out to be real but beautiful instead of terrifying, what other fears might change shape when we finally see them clearly? In the twilight and midnight waters of the open ocean, there are no forests, no meadows, no coral gardens to gather around. Instead, life drifts in endless numbers, carried by the currents, shimmering faintly in the dark. Among them is a small fish, no larger than your hand, and yet it may be the most abundant vertebrate on Earth. This is the lanternfish. They do not dazzle with bright colors or spectacular fins. At first glance, they look almost plain, but when night falls, the secret of their name appears. Tiny organs along their sides begin to glow, lighting patterns across their bodies like constellations. These lights are not decorative, they are tools, camouflage, signals, survival. A lanternfish swimming upward in the dark can light its belly in the same shade as the dim glow above, erasing its shadow from predators below. Though small, lanternfish exist in astonishing numbers. Scientists estimate they make up a major share of all the fish in the ocean, perhaps as much as 60% of the entire deep-sea biomass. Imagine schools stretching across horizons, invisible to human eyes, moving with the patience of tides. If whales are the giants of the sea, lanternfish are its heartbeat, pulsing in billions through the layers of darkness. Their daily lives are part of the greatest migration on the planet. Each night they rise toward the surface to feed on plankton. By day, they sink back to the safety of the twilight depths, out of reach of surface predators. In doing so, they transport nutrients from the shallows to the deep and back again. Entire ecosystems depend on this nightly commute. Without lanternfish, the balance of ocean life would shatter. And though they glow with purpose. Each species of lanternfish carries its own unique light pattern, like fingerprints of fire. These patterns allow them to find their own kind in the darkness, to recognize potential mates among the drifting multitude. It is as though the deep sea is filled with a silent language of light, each flash a whisper, each pattern a name. Predators know this language too. Larger fish, squid and whales feast on lanternfish in great numbers. For many animals of the deep and middle ocean, lanternfish are the foundation of survival, the quiet link that carries energy upward and downward. Their role is not flashy, not singular, but essential. The way grass sustains plains, or plankton sustains reefs, they are the invisible bridge holding the ocean together. We rarely see them, yet they shape our lives as well. By feeding in shallower waters at night, lanternfish help lock carbon deep below, transporting it in their bodies back down into the dark when they descend. This carbon cycle regulates Earth's climate, binding atmosphere and ocean in a delicate partnership. With every rise and fall of lanternfish schools, the planet breathes a little steadier. To imagine their abundance is almost beyond scale. Picture a night ocean horizon. For every wave you see, countless lanternfish glide below, glowing softly, darting in schools so vast that sonar registers them as a false sea floor. To submariners of the past, these shifting layers looked like the bottom itself, only to vanish when night came, rising like ghosts into shallower water. And yet, despite their importance, they remain mysterious. Scientists have barely sampled them, pulling nets that come up filled with glittering silver bodies, their lights extinguished by the touch of air. Each catch reveals more species, more subtle differences in light patterns, more evidence of their hidden dominance. But for every one we study, millions more pass unseen. In their small bodies lies a reminder: not every marvel of the deep is large, monstrous, or bizarre. Some are simple, unassuming, yet profoundly powerful by their sheer numbers and roles. Lanternfish will never feature in myths of krakens or leviathans, but in truth, it is they who may be the ocean's quiet rulers, carrying the weight of the sea on tiny glowing backs. Perhaps one night, as you drift to sleep, you might imagine yourself sinking into the twilight sea. Around you, faint pinpricks of light shimmer like a sky turned upside down. They are not stars, but fish, billions of them keeping time with tides, rising and falling as one. You are floating in the company of the most abundant travelers on Earth. The lanternfish show you that wonder is not always in the rare or monstrous, but in the humble, repeated countless times until it shapes the world. If the smallest and plainest among us can carry such weight, what hidden strength might rest quietly within ourselves? Imagine drifting in total darkness, a black so deep that even your own hands vanish before your eyes. Then, without warning, the sea begins to glow, a spark here, a soft ripple there, until the water is alive with light. This is not sunlight, nor moonlight, it is life itself, glowing from within. Bioluminescence is one of the deep sea's greatest wonders. Scientists estimate that more than 3 out of every 4 creatures in the deep ocean can produce their own light. From tiny plankton to drifting jellyfish, from hunting fish to delicate worms, the darkness of the ocean is alive with self-made fire. Unlike fire though, this light is cold, a chemical reaction between luciferin, the molecule that glows, and luciferase, the enzyme that sets it alight. No smoke, no heat, only pure radiance in water that feels colder than ice. The purposes of this living light are as varied as the creatures themselves. Some animals use it to hunt. Picture a predator swimming through the dark with a lure glowing gently in front of its mouth. Small fish, curious and drawn to the glow, swim closer until they vanish in jaws that close around them. Others use light for defense, releasing sudden flashes that confuse predators or make them hesitate. Some shrimp can even spit out a glowing cloud, a burst of liquid fire drifting in the water, distracting hunters while they escape. But perhaps the most haunting use of bioluminescence is camouflage. In the twilight zone above, faint light still filters downward. Predators lurking below could spot the shadows of fish above them. To survive, many creatures shine their bellies with the same faint glow as the water above, erasing their outline. It is called counter-illumination, a vanishing act that works so perfectly it turns vulnerability into invisibility. Some creatures go further, producing colors rarely seen in the deep. While most bioluminescence glows blue-green, the color that travels farthest in seawater, a few have evolved red or orange light. In a world where nearly every eye is tuned to blue, red becomes invisible. A predator shining in red can illuminate prey that never even realizes it is being watched. To imagine this is to imagine a hidden spectrum, an ocean painted in hues our eyes cannot see. At times the displays become collective. A school of lanternfish stirred by a predator may flash in sequence, waves of light cascading through thousands of bodies. To a passing whale, the ocean itself seems to breathe in flickers of silver fire. When jellies are disturbed, they may glow with explosions of color, spiraling patterns that drift gently into nothing. Even the smallest plankton, invisible to the naked eye, can make waves sparkle when stirred, a phenomenon sailors once called the sea's stars. Human witnesses often describe these sights in hushed tones, as though speaking too loudly might break the spell. A diver entering such waters sees galaxies below, not of stars but of lives carrying their own light. A submarine pilot looks out and finds himself surrounded by glowing trails, like comets arcing past the portholes. The deep ocean, it turns out, does not lack light, it makes its own. And yet, so much remains unknown. Why do some creatures flash rhythmically, like signals? Are they communicating, sending coded messages we cannot yet understand? How did evolution paint so many bodies with fire? The truth is, we are only beginning to glimpse the answers. Each dive uncovers new glowing forms, new strategies, new mysteries. But one meaning is clear. Light here is survival. In a world of endless night, to glow is to live, to attract, to deceive, to defend. It is language, weapon, disguise, and beacon, all at once. It is proof that even in the most extreme darkness, beauty emerges not in spite of hardship, but because of it. As you picture this, imagine yourself floating in the midnight waters. A wave of light swirls around you, thousands of creatures writing their presence into the black. Some blink once and vanish, others leave trails that spiral like handwriting across the water. You are in the middle of a living constellation, each star pulsing not in the sky but in the sea. And as you drift there, you realize the ocean's deepest secret, that even in its most silent places, there is always something shining. If life can create its own light when the world offers none, how might we find our own glow in the moments that feel darkest? In the deep, where oxygen thins and even strong swimmers falter, there drifts a creature that seems born from both myth and science fiction. It is neither a true squid nor a true octopus, though it carries traits of both. It wears a cloak of webbed arms, moves with slow dignity, and glows softly in the dark. Its name is the vampire squid. The name, dramatic as it sounds, is a little misleading. It does not drink blood or hunt like the predators of horror tales. Instead, the vampire squid is gentle, feeding on the smallest fragments of life that drift down into the deep flakes of organic matter, drifting bits of what we call marine snow. It collects this nourishment with delicate filaments that extend like threads, catching particles the way a spider catches dew in its web. To imagine it feeding is to picture patience itself, gathering sustenance from the ocean's dust. Its appearance, though, is unforgettable. The arms are joined by a sheet of skin, forming a cloak-like web. When threatened, the vampire squid can fold its arms over its body, pulling the web around itself like a cape, spikes along the arms exposed in defense. In that moment, it looks every bit the part of its gothic name, a little drifter in the dark, cloaked in mystery. Yet for all its eerie looks, the vampire squid is ancient and enduring. Fossil evidence suggests that its lineage has remained nearly unchanged for over 300 million years. That means it was gliding through oceans long before the first dinosaurs walked the land, long before flowers bloomed on Earth's surface. While empires of land animals rose and fell, the vampire squid endured quietly in the depths, unchanged because it did not need to change. In a world that punishes fragility, its simplicity became strength. Part of its resilience lies in its ability to survive in oxygen-poor waters where few others can. Between 600 and 1200 meters deep, in what scientists call the oxygen minimum zone, most animals struggle to breathe. Yet here the vampire squid drifts comfortably, conserving energy, moving slowly, requiring little. Its metabolism is tuned to scarcity. Its tissues hold special proteins that extract oxygen from even the thinnest supply. Where other cephalopods gasp and fail, it floats at ease, ruler of a realm too hostile for competitors. Its bioluminescence, too, sets it apart. Along its body, light organs flicker with quiet control. It can release clouds of glowing mucus, threads of blue fire that hang in the water long after it has slipped away. Predators chasing it are left dazzled by these luminous decoys, while the squid itself disappears back into the dark. Other times it uses its glowing organs like signals, small pulses of light in an otherwise silent world. We do not yet fully know the language of those glows, but we know they are part of its survival. The vampire squid is small compared to the giants of its cephalopod cousins. Most reach only about a foot long, their bodies delicate, gelatinous, adapted to the crushing pressure around them. Yet their smallness is deceiving. They represent a triumph of endurance over spectacle. While giant squids command awe for their size, the vampire squid commands wonder for its persistence. To last unchanged through hundreds of millions of years is an achievement no empire or dynasty of land animals can match. And despite its name and its cloak, the vampire squid is not a villain of the sea, but a caretaker of the ocean's balance. By consuming drifting organic matter, it helps recycle nutrients that would otherwise sink unused into the abyss. It turns decay into life, cleaning the water column, linking surface life to deep. In its quiet way, it is part of the great machinery that keeps the ocean alive. Imagine watching it drift before you, arms trailing, cloak billowing with every pulse. A creature out of time, soft and slow, luminous and strange. You might think it fragile, yet in truth, it is one of the most enduring beings on Earth. It has outlived mass extinctions, climate shifts and continental drift. It asks for little, takes only what drifts into its reach, and yet it survives where others cannot. There is a lesson in such endurance. We imagine that strength always looks like force, like speed, like sharpness of tooth or claw. But in the deep, sometimes strength looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like gentleness, like stillness, like a cloak gathered around you in defense rather than a charge toward battle. The vampire squid reminds us that survival is not always a contest of power, but often a quiet art of belonging exactly where you are. So tonight, as you rest, think of this ancient survivor drifting slowly in waters most eyes will never see, not monstrous, not frightening, but enduring, a small guardian of the ocean's hidden balance. A reminder that to live simply, to require little, to adapt gracefully, is a kind of triumph all its own. If a being so small and fragile can survive unchanged for 300 million years, what quiet parts of ourselves might also carry the strength to last beyond storms? Far below the sunlit waves, where silence spreads like velvet and water presses heavy on every side, there drift creatures that seem less like animals and more like living lanterns. They have no bones, no shells, no rigid shapes. They are bodies of water, suspended in water, delicate membranes that glow, shimmer, and pulse in slow arcs. These are the jellies of the deep sea, drifters whose beauty lies in their very fragility. Some resemble umbrellas made of light, pulsating gently as they rise and fall. Others trail ribbons many meters long, delicate threads that move as though stirred by unseen breezes. Still others spin like galaxies, their bodies scattering faint sparks of blue or green into the darkness. Unlike the jellyfish of shallower waters, these deep-sea relatives often glow with their own inner fire, bioluminescent blooms blooming and fading in unison. To watch one is to feel that time itself has slowed. The truth is that we know little about them. Most cannot survive capture. Their bodies collapse in nets or dissolve when lifted from the pressure that supports them. What little we learn comes from rare glimpses through submersible windows or from videos of fragile shapes illuminated briefly by a scientist's light. Each encounter feels like meeting a ghost, there for a moment, then gone, leaving only ripples in the water and questions in the mind. Though fragile, these drifters are survivors in their own way. Many feed by extending tentacles that sting and ensnare prey. The threads may be nearly invisible, stretching out like strands of glass, waiting for an unwary shrimp or fish to brush against them. Others feed more passively, catching drifting snow of organic matter as it falls. Some are predators of surprising efficiency. Despite their softness, they remind us that even the gentlest seeming bodies can conceal quiet power. Their diversity is astonishing. There are comb jellies, or ctenophores, whose shimmering rows of cilia refract light into rainbows, making them appear as if jeweled. There are siphonophores, colonies of many small individuals joined together to form one enormous drifting body. Some siphonophores grow to over 150 feet in length, making them longer than even the largest whales. Imagine a living ribbon stretching through the water, each section specialized, one part for movement, another for feeding, another for reproduction. A creature that is not one but many, moving together as a single whole. Some jellies in the deep sea display forms almost unearthly. One species blooms in a perfect red sphere, glowing like a coal suspended in black water. Another unfurls transparent wings that flap as though it were flying through air, instead of swimming through sea. Each new dive reveals forms more elaborate than the last, bodies sculpted by millions of years into designs we could never have imagined. The ocean, it seems, is still inventing life with an artist's patience. And though they seem delicate, these jellies hold a central role in the deep-sea web of life. They are prey for fish, for squid, even for other jellies larger than themselves. At the same time, they are predators, feeding on the drifting multitude of smaller creatures that crowd the Twilight Zone. In this way, they are both link and bridge, connecting the great cycle of energy that flows from the surface downward. Without them, much of the ocean's balance would falter. There is also mystery in their glowing. Some jellyfish can flash in patterns, ripples of light chasing themselves around the bell. Others produce sudden bursts, illuminating the water like silent fireworks. Are these warnings, signals, or simple accidents of biology? We do not yet know, but the effect on a human observer is profound. To watch a jelly flare with light in the dark is to feel that the sea itself is alive and breathing. The jellies remind us that strength does not always mean hardness. Their bodies, 95% water, are as fragile as mist, yet they dominate entire layers of the ocean. They teach us that fluidity, patience, and openness can be as powerful as armor or speed. They do not rush, they drift, they do not fight, they glow, and yet they have endured for hundreds of millions of years, older than most lineages on Earth. Imagine floating beside one, its bell expanding and contracting with the rhythm of a heartbeat. The glow pulses faintly, then brightens, as though responding to your own breath. Its tentacles sway with the currents, tracing arcs that look like calligraphy on black paper. Around it, others drift, ribbons, spheres, cascades of lights, a silent choir of fragile bodies moving as one. In their presence, you feel no fear, only wonder, and the quiet lesson that fragility can endure just as strongly as strength. If creatures so soft and delicate can fill the vast ocean with light, what might our own gentleness illuminate in the darkness around us? In the black stillness of the deep ocean, there are no street lamps, no campfires, no sunrise or sunset to mark the hours. There is only darkness, until a tiny light appears. A glowing thread sways gently, bobbing back and forth. It looks harmless, even inviting, a beacon in the void. Small fish, curious and hungry, drift closer. They do not see the jagged teeth waiting just behind the glow. This is the anglerfish, one of the most haunting hunters of the deep. Its name comes from its weapon, the elusive, a fleshy rod that extends from its forehead, tipped with a lure that shines through bioluminescence. Each flicker is produced not by the fish itself, but by symbiotic bacteria living inside the lure. The anglerfish offers shelter, the bacteria offer light. Together they create a trap so perfect that prey cannot resist. In an environment where food is scarce and hunting is costly, the anglerfish has become a master of efficiency. It does not chase, it waits. It lets the ocean deliver food straight into its open mouth. Its mouth, when it opens, is a cavern. The jaw unhinges to a grotesque degree, allowing the anglerfish to swallow prey, nearly half its own size. Long needle-like teeth curve inward, ensuring that once something enters, escape is impossible. The body itself is often no larger than a football, but the impression it leaves is immense. In the imagination, it looms like a monster. In truth, it is a small, fragile animal, simply surviving where survival is hardest. There are many species of anglerfish, scattered across different depths and oceans, each with its own variation of lure and form. Some wave a single glowing bulb. Others carry branching filaments that sway like a forest of lights. Some flash in rhythms that may help them attract specific prey. Each one is a craftsman of shadows, tuned to the darkness around it. One of the most extraordinary features of some anglerfish species is their approach to reproduction. In the deep sea, where individuals are rare and distances vast, finding a mate can be nearly impossible. The anglerfish has solved this problem in a way that seems almost unbelievable. When a tiny male finds a female, he latches onto her body with his teeth. Over time, his tissues fuse into hers. He loses his independence, even his organs, until he is little more than a pair of gonads connected to her bloodstream. She nourishes him, he fertilizes her eggs, and together they ensure survival. What looks monstrous to us is, in truth, a remarkable partnership born of necessity. This extreme strategy highlights how different life becomes when shaped by scarcity. On the surface, we take encounters for granted. Bees find flowers, birds call across forests, people cross paths daily. In the deep sea, chance meetings are rare miracles. The anglerfish ensures that when such a meeting occurs, it is permanent. Two lives become one, bound together for survival in the endless dark. Despite their sinister appearance, anglerfish are not demons of the deep. They are quiet hunters, conserving energy in a place where waste means death. Their glowing lures are not tricks born of cruelty, but clever adaptations honed over millions of years. In fact, their entire existence speaks to balance, patience over speed, stillness over frenzy, partnership over solitude. To see one in its element, drifting with its light swaying before it, is to feel a mixture of awe and unease. The light itself is soft, almost beautiful, casting delicate halos in the water. The fish behind it is grotesque by human standards, wide jaws, bony spines, enormous eyes, yet together light and body form a creature perfectly matched to its world. Beauty and terror dissolve into function. The anglerfish reminds us that survival often requires invention. Where others swim blindly in the dark, it has turned the darkness into a stage, with light as its script. Where others seek independence, it has embraced union so fully that two become one. Where others hunt by chasing, it has learned to wait. It is a lesson not of horror, but of creativity in the face of silence. Imagine yourself drifting through the midnight waters, no sound but your own breath, no light but the glow before you. You feel yourself drawn to it, as though it promises comfort, but you stop just short, and in that pause you see the teeth beyond, waiting with patience that could outlast centuries. You understand suddenly that the deep is not cruel, only practical. Every creature here has found its own answer to the same riddle: how to live where almost nothing lives. The anglerfish's answer is as elegant as it is eerie. It glows, it waits, it endures. If patience and stillness can be as powerful as pursuit, what might we gain by waiting for light to come to us, instead of always chasing it? Imagine standing at sea level, where the air presses gently against your skin. We hardly notice it. The weight of the atmosphere is constant, invisible, ordinary. Now picture yourself sinking beneath the waves. With each meter you descend, the water presses harder. 10 meters down, it feels like the weight of the air again has been added on top of you. At 50 meters, your chest tightens. At 100, even machines strain. And yet the ocean does not stop. It deepens for miles, each mile adding weight upon weight, until the pressure at the sea floor is almost beyond imagination. At 1,000 meters, the pressure is 100 times greater than at the surface. At 10,000 meters, in the hadal trenches, the weight of the water above is so immense it equals the mass of 50 jumbo jets pressing on every square meter. It is crushing, relentless, absolute to us. It feels like a boundary, a place no fragile body could endure. And yet in those depths, life goes on. Fish swim, worms burrow, microbes feed in sediments. The crushing weight that would flatten our bones is, to them, as natural as the air we breathe. How do they do it? The answer lies in the quiet chemistry of their bodies. Many deep-sea creatures have no air-filled cavities, no swim bladders to burst, no lungs to collapse. Their tissues are soft, pliant, water-rich, almost indistinguishable from the medium they live in. They bend where we would break. Their cells contain special molecules called piezolites, which protect proteins and membranes from the squeezing force of pressure. Instead of shattering, their biology flexes, adapting with elegance to the forces around them. Consider the amphipods that crawl along trench floors, shrimp-like creatures that scavenge in the dark. In their bodies, researchers have found high concentrations of these protective molecules, along with enzymes tuned to work only under immense pressure. To bring one to the surface alive is nearly impossible. In the absence of pressure, their fragile balance collapses. In a way, they belong more to the deep than we belong to the air. Even fish have made the journey. The hadal snailfish, found more than 8 kilometers below the surface, looks delicate, translucent, almost like jelly. Its body lacks rigid bones in many places. Its skull is soft, its muscles are pliant, but in its softness lies survival. Where sturdiness would crack, flexibility endures. To human eyes, it may look frail, but in truth, it is perfectly strong in the only environment it needs to inhabit. The adaptations are not only physical, but behavioral. Many deep-sea creatures move slowly, conserving energy in an environment where both food and resilience are scarce. Their heartbeats are sluggish, their growth rates extended. Some live decades longer than their shallow water relatives, trading speed for longevity. In stillness, they find endurance. To imagine their world is to imagine silence with weight. If you were there even in a submersible, you would hear the creak of metal, the groan of bolts, as pressure tested every seam. Outside, though, the creatures drift calmly, unaffected. They are not resisting the deep. They are part of it, woven into its physics as naturally as birds are to the sky. It makes us reconsider what strength really means. On land, we prize solidity, the ability to resist. In the deep, survival belongs to what yields, to what bends without breaking, to what reshapes itself rather than fighting a force too vast to oppose. The ocean teaches us that sometimes the way forward is not to push harder, but to soften, to accept, to flow. And though the pressures of the deep seem alien to us, they are not entirely apart. On land too, we carry invisible weights, expectations, fears, regrets, responsibilities. They press on us in ways no one else can see. Like the amphipods and snailfish, we cannot eliminate the weight, but perhaps we can adapt to it, not by resisting, but by learning to be flexible, to find our own pisolites, so to speak, inner strategies that let us function even when the pressure is high. Picture yourself now at the bottom of a trench. Darkness stretches in every direction. The weight of miles of water rests above you, yet instead of fear there is calm. Around you translucent fish drift, amphipods scuttle, microbes feed in silence. To them this is not crushing, it is home. The pressure is not an enemy, but a constant, as ordinary as your own breath. You realize that life here is not miraculous in the sense of defying odds. It is natural, inevitable, an expression of the truth, that life adapts wherever it can. The deep sea is a reminder that even the heaviest burdens can be lived with, if one learns how to bend. The animals there do not curse their conditions, they embody them. They are living proof that even under the greatest weight, existence can glow, drift, and endure. If life can adapt to pressures that seem unbearable, what new forms might we take if we stop resisting the weight we feel and start moving with it instead? On the abyssal plains, where the mud lies undisturbed for millennia and the cold presses down like a second skin, it seems impossible that anything fiery could exist. The water hovers near freezing, the silence feels absolute. Then suddenly the seafloor splits, and the ocean fills with smoke. A towering vent rises, belching black clouds of minerals and heat into the endless dark. These are black smokers, chimneys of fire in the coldest part of the sea. They are born at the edges of tectonic plates, where Earth's crust cracks and shifts. Seawater seeps into these fractures, plunging deep beneath the crust, where molten rock lies close. The water superheats, reaching temperatures of more than 400 degrees Celsius, then shoots back upward, carrying dissolved metals and minerals with it. When it bursts out into the near-freezing water, the minerals solidify instantly, creating plumes of black smoke. Over time, the plumes build chimneys that can rise tens of meters tall, fragile towers built from minerals precipitated in the dark. It looks like destruction, boiling water spewing into the deep, and yet it is the opposite. Around these vents, life gathers in astonishing abundance. Tube worms grow in thick colonies, their bodies blood red at the tips. Mussels and clams cluster in carpets. Crabs scuttle across the chimneys, picking at scraps. Even fish circle the towers, drawn to the warmth and the food. In the vast emptiness of the abyss, black smokers are oases of life, blazing with strange abundance, where none should exist. The secret lies not in sunlight, but in chemistry. The minerals pouring from the vents, hydrogen sulfide, iron, manganese, provide the ingredients for life. Microbes harness them in a process called chemosynthesis, creating sugars not from light, but from chemical reactions. These microbes form the base of a food chain, unlike any other, one that does not rely on the sun. From them, tube worms and clams draw nourishment. From them, crabs and fish find sustenance. It is a parallel Earth, one that proves life does not always need sunlight to flourish. The chimneys themselves are as fragile as they are dramatic. Built from layers of minerals, they can collapse and rebuild over years. Some grow into spires more than 30 meters high, venting superheated water like undersea geysers. Others sputter quietly, their plumes more modest but no less vital. In every case, they are transient, living structures that rise, collapse, and rise again as Earth's crust shifts beneath them. The variety of minerals they release also paints the water with color. Black smokers pour dark plumes of sulfides, staining the water with shadows. White smokers, their gentler cousins, release barium, calcium, and silicone, creating pale clouds that drift like ghosts. Together they remind us that the ocean floor is not still, but alive with hidden fires. For scientists, black smokers were a revelation. When they were first discovered in 1977, the idea that entire ecosystems could thrive without sunlight seemed impossible. But the proof was undeniable. The chimneys were ringed with life, glowing in the beams of submersible lights. The discovery reshaped our understanding of where life could exist, not just on Earth, but potentially beyond it. If microbes can thrive on chemistry alone here, perhaps beneath the ice of Europa or Enceladus, similar vents could host alien seas of life. The heat, the minerals, the abundance, all of it suggests creation where we expect nothingness. To sit in a submersible and watch a black smoker is to witness contradiction embodied. You see fire in water, warmth in cold, richness in barrenness. The sight alone feels like a story told in opposites, each contradiction resolved into beauty. And still, the animals living here remind us of patience. Tube worms can live for centuries, rooted to the chimneys, nourished by the microbes that inhabit their tissues. They never see the sun, never drift from their vent, but their colonies endure longer than many forests on land. Crabs and clams come and go, carried by currents, but the worms stay. They are witnesses to the fire in the abyss. Perhaps what lingers most is the sense of possibility. The vents remind us that life does not ask for ideal conditions, it asks only for opportunity. Given chemistry, given stability, given time, it will find a way. That truth humbles us. We like to imagine Earth as fragile, but in truth, life has roots deeper and more varied than we often remember. So imagine yourself hovering beside a chimney, its plume rising in thick clouds, its sides glowing faintly with reflected light. Around it, worms sway in the currents, crabs scuttle, fish circle. The water is warm here, against all odds. In the stillness of the abyss, you find a hearth, a gathering place, a fire that never burns out. And you realize that even in the darkest places, the earth keeps inventing warmth. If life can bloom in fire and smoke at the bottom of the sea, what hidden conditions in our own lives might be quietly waiting to spark growth where we least expected? For most of Earth's history, and in most of Earth's places, life has followed the sun. Plants open their leaves to it, plankton rise and fall with it, forests and fields and reefs pulse with its warmth. We learn as children that sunlight is life, that without it the chain of being would break, and yet, in the cold blackness of the deep, there is life flourishing in defiance of this law, life that has never seen the sun. At the heart of this mystery is chemosynthesis. Instead of drawing energy from light, certain microbes can draw it from chemicals in the earth itself. At hydrothermal vents, they take in hydrogen sulfide and carbon dioxide, transforming them into organic matter. With each reaction, they make sugars that sustain themselves, and in turn sustain entire communities. Here the sun is irrelevant, the fuel is chemistry, the fire is hidden in minerals rising from Earth's crust. Imagine a tube worm tall as a person, rooted in the side of a black smoker chimney. It has no mouth, no stomach, no way to eat in any ordinary sense, and yet it thrives. Inside its body live countless symbiotic bacteria. The worm gives them a home. The bacteria, through chemosynthesis, give the worm nourishment. What looks like an impossible life, a body without food, is in truth a partnership perfected. These colonies can stretch for meters, swaying like fields of grass, their red plumes filtering sulfides from the vent water, a meadow in the dark, blooming without sunlight. The same principle feeds mussels, clams and crabs around the vents. Microbes coat the rocks, film the water, and fill the tissues of hosts. To a diver's eye, the vents look like oases, packed with biomass in an otherwise empty plain. And all of it begins not with light, but with molecules invisible to us, transformed by chemistry into life. This discovery shook our understanding of biology. For centuries it seemed obvious that sunlight was the universal source. Photosynthesis was the base of all chains. But in 1977, when researchers first discovered vent communities powered by chemosynthesis, the story changed. Life had another path, another origin, another possibility. It was a revelation not only about Earth, but about the universe. If life can survive without sun here, perhaps it can survive on other worlds, beneath ice, around hidden vents, in places we have never touched. Chemosynthesis also occurs in smaller ways across the ocean. In cold seeps where methane and sulfides bubble up from the sea floor, microbes form mats that look like pale carpets, covering the mud. These mats feed mussels and worms that anchor there, creating miniature communities. Even without heat, the principle holds. Energy lies not only in light, but in the restless movements of the earth itself. The chemical reactions are elegant in their simplicity. A microbe takes in hydrogen sulfide, oxidizes it, and uses the released energy to fix carbon dioxide into sugars. It is in essence photosynthesis without photons. Instead of sun, the spark comes from the minerals that flow in silence through the crust. It is proof that life is not bound to a single rule, but adapts to whatever opportunity appears. Reflect for a moment on what this means. We live on the surface, where our rhythms are dictated by dawn and dusk, where light tells us when to wake and when to sleep. To imagine life without the sun feels unthinkable. Yet in the deep, entire cities of organisms thrive in eternal night, never knowing a sunrise, never needing one. They are self-sufficient, powered by the Earth's hidden chemistry, as eternal as the rock they cling to. There is beauty in the thought. Perhaps life is more universal than we once believed. Perhaps the universe itself is full of unseen communities, clinging to hidden heat, thriving without starlight. Chemosynthesis suggests that we may not be as alone as we imagine. The boundaries of life are wider, the definitions looser, the possibilities endless. And still, it is not only about faraway worlds, it is about resilience here, now. In a place where we would see impossibility, no light, no food, only cold and pressure, life finds another way. It reminds us that even when one source of hope seems cut off, another may exist, hidden but waiting. The vents whisper, there is always another path. Imagine drifting now among those chimneys. You see the water shimmering with heat. You feel the pulse of energy that rises from cracks in the planet. Around you, worms wave in silence, clams nestle in clusters, crabs scuttle across rocks slick with bacterial mats. No sunlight reaches here, no green leaf ever unfurls, and yet it is vibrant, loud in its own way, a community singing in chemistry. You breathe slowly, realizing that life does not need to ask permission. It invents itself wherever it can. If life can bloom without sunlight, feeding only on hidden chemistry, how many ways might we also nourish ourselves in the dark seasons of our lives? When we think of coral, we usually imagine sunlit shallows, tropical waters alive with color, fish weaving between branching reefs, sunlight streaming through the blue. Coral, we are told, belongs to light, yet far beneath the surface, in places where no sunbeam ever falls, corals still build their gardens. They are different in form and slower in growth, but no less wondrous. These are the deep-sea corals, patient architects of shadowed worlds. Unlike their shallow cousins, they do not rely on algae living in their tissues. In tropical reefs, corals host zooxanthellae, tiny plants that provide sugars in exchange for shelter. But in the dark, such partnerships are impossible. Instead, deep-sea corals feed by stretching delicate tentacles into the current, capturing drifting plankton and flakes of organic matter. Each polyp is a hunter, catching what passes by in silence. Together, thousands of polyps form colonies that rise like forests on the seabed. Some of these colonies are ancient beyond imagination. A golden coral found off Hawaii was estimated to be over 4,000 years old, making it one of the oldest known living animals on Earth. For millennia, it stood rooted in darkness, polyps feeding one after another, building its slow-growing skeleton. In that time, human civilizations rose and fell, languages were born and forgotten, entire empires vanished, and still, the coral endured, polyp after polyp, patient as stone. Deep-sea corals come in many forms. Some spread in branching networks, like trees frozen mid-sway. Others twist into spirals, delicate whorls that look like frozen smoke. Some grow as fans, wide and thin, filtering currents as they pass. Their skeletons are built not of sunlight's energy, but of minerals drawn from seawater, layered year after year. In this way, they create structures that become homes for countless creatures. Fish gather in their branches, finding shelter from the emptiness of the open sea. Crustaceans hide in their crevices, waiting to pounce on drifting prey. Starfish and brittle stars coil along their arms, feeding on the same plankton that brushes by. To stumble upon one of these coral gardens in the deep is to find life where you expect none, a forest blooming in perpetual night. Their growth is slow, painfully so. Some species add only a few millimeters each year. A coral fan that stretches meters across may be older than every building in a city, older than the nation that charts its waters. They endure because time itself seems to move differently for them. Where our lives feel urgent, theirs unfold in centuries. They remind us that patience is not emptiness, but richness drawn out over long spans. And yet, despite their endurance, they are fragile. A single trawl net dragged across the seafloor can destroy a colony that took thousands of years to grow. A careless anchor can break branches older than human memory. The deep protects them somewhat, hiding them far from casual touch, but it cannot shield them entirely. Their fragility is part of their lesson. Even the oldest, most patient structures can vanish in moments. Scientists studying deep-sea corals find not only beauty but also records. Their skeletons hold chemical traces of the water they grew in, like rings of a tree preserving seasons. By analyzing them, researchers learn about ancient currents, climates, and changes in the ocean that occurred long before our records began. Each coral is not only a habitat, but also a library, holding stories written in calcium and time. It is humbling to realize how little light they need. While we measure our days in brightness, these corals have never known dawn. They do not ask for sunrise or sunset. They build and endure in complete darkness, nourished only by what the sea delivers. They are proof that beauty is not confined to light. Even in darkness, gardens bloom. Imagine now that you are descending into the deep, your light catching the pale shimmer of coral branches rising from the plain. At first it seems improbable, a tree in a desert, but as your eyes adjust, you see entire groves spreading across the slope, fans unfurling like pages, spirals twisting gently in the current. Fish dart among them, crabs cling to them, stars wrap around them. It is not barren after all, but alive with quiet intricacy. You hover there breathing slowly, watching a colony that may have been alive since before the pyramids were built. Its branches hold secrets older than any story you know. Its patience dwarfs your own, and in its silence you feel the truth. Time is not only speed and urgency, it can also be depth, layers upon layers, built slowly until they last longer than memory. The deep-sea corals whisper this lesson across centuries, that even in the darkest, most remote corners, life will weave itself into beauty. That fragility and endurance can live side by side, and that patience, though invisible in the moment, can carve forests out of night. If corals can build forests in the dark, one patient branch at a time, what might we be able to create in our own lives if we trusted the slow work of years? A whale's life is vast, measured in decades, carried across oceans in migrations that link poles and tropics, but even giants must one day rest. When a whale dies, its body sinks, slowly descending through the water column, a final migration towards silence. For hours, sometimes days, it drifts downward, until at last it reaches the sea floor. There, in the stillness of the abyss, it becomes something extraordinary, not an ending, but a beginning, a whale fall. The carcass of a whale can weigh many tons. When it lands on the sea floor, it is as if a banquet has been delivered to a desert. In the deep, where food is scarce and life is often sparse, the sudden arrival of such abundance is transformative. Scavengers arrive first, sharks and hagfish, tearing at the soft tissue, stripping flesh with efficiency. Crabs crawl over the bones, picking clean what remains. For days or weeks, the feast is a frenzy of motion in a place that is usually still. But the whale's gift does not end with the surface of its body. As the flesh is consumed, other creatures move in. Worms and mollusks bore into the bones themselves, extracting oils and nutrients locked within. Specialized worms called osedacs, sometimes called bone-eating worms, release acid from their root-like tissues, dissolving the bone to reach the fat-rich marrow inside. They carry no mouths, no stomachs, but with the help of symbiotic bacteria, they thrive on what others cannot touch. For them, the whale's skeleton is a world entire. In time, even bacteria bloom across the bones, breaking down remaining lipids and proteins, releasing compounds that other microbes can use. Chemosynthetic bacteria flourish in this stage, creating sulfide-rich zones similar to those at hydrothermal vents. Around them, yet more life gathers. Clams, mussels, worms. What was once a body becomes an ecosystem, a miniature vent-like community in the middle of the abyss. The cycle can last decades. Long after the last scraps of flesh are gone, the bones continue to support communities of microbes and invertebrates. A single whale fall can nourish hundreds of species, providing habitat and sustenance in a place that would otherwise remain barren. Scientists call them oases of the deep, and rightly so. They are reminders that even in death, a whale carries abundance. To imagine it is to picture a cathedral on the sea floor, a skeleton sprawled across the mud, ribs arching like vaults, vertebrae stacked like pillars. Around it, life pulses, crabs scuttling, worms waving, bacteria glowing faintly in the chemical-rich water. It is solemn, yes, but also alive. Death has been transmuted into community, into continuity, into resilience. The discovery of whale falls was relatively recent. For most of history, we did not know what became of the bodies of whales after they died at sea. It was assumed they simply vanished into the depths, lost to sight. Only in the late 20th century did submersibles reveal the truth, that they became foundations of life, sanctuaries of abundance. Each discovery since has revealed new species, new strategies of survival, new insights into how the deep sustains itself. And beyond the science lies the metaphor. A whale fall is not just an ecological event, it is a story about transformation. What seems like an ending is, in truth, a dispersal of energy, a gift to others. The whale's body, once carried with power through the waves, becomes a quiet foundation for the survival of creatures that may never have seen sunlight. Consider the scale of generosity. A whale lives its life in the open ocean, feeding, migrating, raising calves, singing songs that can travel for miles. And when it dies, it continues to give. Its life supports communities it will never see, in places it never visited. It becomes more than itself. It becomes continuity, nourishment, memory. Perhaps there is comfort in that thought, that endings can ripple outward into beginnings, that silence can become abundance, that even in the darkest depths, loss can create life. Picture yourself drifting above one now. The skeleton lies vast beneath you, its white bones stark against the dark sediment. You see crabs moving between ribs, worms sprouting like strange flowers from vertebrae, fish circling slowly in the shadows. What might look to us like decay is, here, vibrancy. You realize that the whale has not vanished at all. It has only changed form, becoming part of the great ocean it once swam. The deep sea does not waste, it transforms. And in that transformation, there is quiet beauty. If even death can be turned into a gift for others, how might our own endings of seasons, of roles, of chapters become beginnings we cannot yet imagine? Sharks are often pictured as swift hunters of the shallows, cutting through surf, sleek bodies glinting in sunlight, dorsal fins rising like shadows across waves. But in the deep sea their story changes. Here they are slower, older, stranger. They drift not as flashes of speed but as ancient wanderers, conserving energy, enduring centuries, moving through blackness with the patience of time itself. One of the most haunting is the frilled shark, with a body that looks almost eel-like. It coils through the depths with slow serpentine grace. Its mouth carries rows of backward-facing teeth, more than 300 in total, each shaped like a needle. It rarely needs to chase. Instead, it lunges suddenly, its flexible body snapping forward to swallow prey whole. To see it is to glimpse something almost prehistoric. And in truth, it is the frilled shark's lineage stretches back 80 million years, largely unchanged. It swims today much as it did when dinosaurs still walked on land. Then there is the goblin shark, with its long flattened snout and jaws that can shoot forward like a trap. When it strikes, the jaws unhinge and extend, snapping onto prey with startling speed. Its pinkish translucent skin gives it an eerie appearance, as though it belongs to another world. And in many ways it does. It haunts the slopes of continental margins, far below the reach of sunlight, moving quietly in the twilight and midnight zones. Deep-sea sharks are often slow because energy is precious, food in the abyss is scarce, and chasing would waste more than it gains. Many rely on ambush, on stealth, on stillness. Their bodies are often soft, their muscles less powerful than their shallow water relatives, but what they lose in speed, they gain in endurance. Some species, like the Greenland shark, can live for centuries, perhaps over 400 years, making them the longest-lived vertebrates on Earth. Imagine a single creature born before the invention of telescopes, still swimming today, unhurried in the Arctic depths. Their senses are tuned to the dark. Sharks have long relied on electroreception, the ability to detect faint electric signals from other living beings. In the deep, this sense becomes essential. A heartbeat, a twitch of muscle, even the faint current produced by gills, all become signals in the blackness. The deep-sea shark does not need to see its prey. It feels life moving through the water, as if the ocean itself were whispering secrets. Many are also scavengers. They will feed on whale falls, on squid, on carrion drifting down from above. Their role is not only to hunt, but to recycle, to ensure nothing goes to waste. In the economy of the deep, every scrap matters. Sharks remind us that survival is not only about conquest, but also about efficiency, about finding nourishment where it exists, and carrying it forward. Despite their often fearsome looks, most deep-sea sharks are not threats to humans. We rarely encounter them at all. Their lives unfold in silence, far from our reach, their dramas hidden by kilometers of water. They are mysteries still, with many species known only from a few specimens caught in nets, their forms collapsing when brought to the surface. We know just enough to know how much we do not know. The poetry of their existence lies in continuity. They are among Earth's oldest lineages, survivors of extinctions that erased countless others. Where empires crumble and landscapes change, sharks endure. In their slow movements, their patient feeding, their centuries-long lives, they remind us that time itself can be an ally. Not everything needs to hurry. Some lives are meant to stretch, not sprint. Imagine yourself now beside a frilled shark, its body coiling like smoke in water. You watch the light from your submersible flicker across its teeth, catching on glassy eyes that reflect nothing. It does not rush at you. It does not flee. It drifts, unhurried, as though your presence is just another current in an ocean it has known for millions of years. You realize you are in the company of a survivor, a witness to ages. Perhaps that is why deep-sea sharks feel both eerie and comforting. They are reminders of the Earth's ancient memory, living fossils moving still. They whisper that life does not always need reinvention. Sometimes persistence is enough. They have endured by being exactly what they are, long past the point where novelty would matter. And so, in the silence of the deep, they continue. Wanderers, scavengers, ambushers, not monsters, but elders of the sea, carrying forward patterns written long before we appeared. If a creature can endure for centuries by moving slowly and living simply, what lessons about longevity and patience might we take into our own fleeting lives? The deep sea is not only a place of darkness and pressure, it is also a place of invention. In this hidden world, where survival is harsh and resources scarce, evolution has written some of its strangest, most surprising chapters. Creatures here are shaped by forces we can barely imagine, their bodies tuned not to beauty or speed, but to the demands of silence, cold, and endless night. They are experiments written in living flesh, each one proof of life's endless creativity. Consider transparency. In the shallows, bright colors and bold markings may help with camouflage, warning, or courtship, but in the deep, where light is faint or absent, another strategy emerges: to disappear entirely. Many fish, shrimps, and jellies are nearly invisible, their tissues so clear that organs and bones vanish into the background. To predators scanning upward, they are simply not there. To see them in a submersible's beam is like spotting glass sculptures drifting in the current, bodies made of silence and absence. Other creatures take the opposite approach, covering themselves in black, so absolute that even faint bioluminescent flashes cannot reveal them. Some species of dragonfish and hatchetfish are cloaked in skin that absorbs 99.9% of incoming light, making them invisible even in a beam of brightness. They are, quite literally, darker than the water around them, vanishing not by absence, but by perfect concealment. It is camouflage turned into art, a disappearance so complete it bends our definition of visibility. There are adaptations of size too. In the deep, gigantism is common. Amphipods, tiny crustaceans at the surface, can grow to the size of a human hand in the trenches. Isopods stretch to lengths that dwarf their shallow cousins. The reasons may lie in pressure, cold, and the efficiency of larger bodies in holding energy. Whatever the cause, the effect is striking. Creatures that seem ordinary on the surface become giants below, as though the deep sea magnifies them into new forms. At the same time, some creatures shrink. Miniaturization allows them to survive with less energy, to hide more easily in sediments or under debris. Where gigantism is a strategy of power, smallness is a strategy of stealth. Both extremes coexist, side by side, shaped by the same environment in opposite ways. Perhaps one of the strangest adaptations is the use of detachable body parts. Some sea cucumbers can eject their internal organs when threatened, distracting predators with a meal while they escape. Over time, they regenerate what was lost. To us it seems grotesque. To them, it is survival, a reminder that even loss can be temporary, even sacrifice can be renewal. Other creatures carry entire ecosystems within them. Some deep-sea mussels host bacteria in their gills that process methane or sulfides, nourishing them in the absence of sunlight. Without these symbionts, the mussels could not survive. With them, they thrive, forming vast beds at cold seeps and vents. It is a partnership so intimate that neither partner could exist in the same way without the other. In the deep, dependence is not weakness, it is resilience. Then there are the adaptations that feel like riddles. The barrel-eye fish has a transparent head, its tubular eyes pointing upward through a dome of clear tissue. This allows it to see both predators above and prey, silhouetted against faint light. To gaze at it is to feel as though you are staring into a puzzle, eyes floating within a glassy skull, strange yet purposeful. Each adaptation tells the same story. In the face of pressure, darkness, and scarcity, life does not falter. It invents, it reshapes itself into forms that might look bizarre, even unsettling, but which work beautifully in context. Evolution here is not about elegance by our standards, but about persistence by the ocean's standards. It invites reflection. How often do we mistake strangeness for weakness, oddity for error? In the deep, strangeness is survival, transparency, blackness, gigantism, smallness, detachable organs, glowing lures, symbiotic partnerships, all are answers to the same questions asked by the abyss. How will you endure? How will you feed? How will you remain unseen? There are no single solutions. There are as many answers as there are creatures drifting in the dark. Imagine yourself surrounded by them now. A shrimp passes, nearly invisible, its outline only visible in your light. A giant amphipod scuttles past, armored and alien. Above, a barrel-eye hovers, its glassy dome catching your gaze, its green eyes staring upward into a world you cannot see. Around you, adaptations unfold like stories, not mistakes, not monsters, but miracles of persistence. You are witnessing the ocean's own experiments, results of millions of years of testing and refining. Each one is improbable, and yet here they are. It leaves you with a quiet realization. Survival is not always about fitting a mold. Sometimes it is about breaking it entirely, becoming something never seen before. The deep sea whispers that difference itself can be a strategy, and that what looks odd in one context may be perfect in another. If life can survive by becoming stranger, more unusual, even unrecognizable, what might we gain if we too allowed ourselves to adapt beyond expectation? When we imagine the deep sea, silence often comes first to mind. A place so vast, so far from air and light, seems as though it must also be empty of sound. Yet the truth is otherwise. The deep ocean is alive with voices, some near, some far, some ancient, some fleeting. Together they form a soundscape, an invisible chorus that travels farther than sight ever could. Water carries sound better than air. A whale's call can travel hundreds, even thousands of kilometers through the ocean. A low-frequency song, deep as thunder, rolls on currents like a ribbon of presence across half a world. For a blue whale, this is not only a song, but a way of keeping touch with others far beyond the horizon. Each note is both a map and a memory, linking individuals across oceans. Closer, other voices join in. Sperm whales click, producing the loudest sound of any animal, pulses that echo like hammer strikes. These clicks are used for echolocation, to sense the outlines of prey in the dark, but also for communication, exchanged in patterns that some researchers believe may be clan dialects. To sit in a submersible and hear these clicks reverberate is to feel the ocean speaking in percussive bursts, a code we have only begun to interpret. Not all sounds are so grand. Shrimp snap their claws, producing crackles that fill shallow seas with static. In the deep, fish drum with special muscles, producing hums and pulses that carry through black water. Even the movement of schools, thousands of fins stirring at once, creates a kind of whisper, a collective rustle, as though the ocean were breathing. There are geological voices too. Earthquakes rumble through trenches, their vibrations carried for miles. Hydrothermal vents hiss and roar as superheated water jets into the abyss. Icebergs carve at the poles, the sound carrying like distant cannon fire through the sea. The deep is not mute, it is orchestral, layered, endless. Some sounds remain mysterious. For decades, researchers recorded unexplained noises. The bloop, a deep resonant sound heard in 1997, so loud it seemed to come from a creature larger than anything known. Later analysis suggested it was likely the sound of ice fracturing, but the mystery lingered. Other unidentified calls, like the upsweep or the whistle, still echo without certain explanation. To listen to the ocean is to realize how much we do not yet know about who or what shares it with us. For animals of the deep, sound is often more useful than sight. Light fades within meters, but sound travels endlessly. To communicate, to navigate, to hunt, all rely on this invisible thread. Some fish release low groans to signal territory, others pulse to find mates. Whales and dolphins weave songs that change over generations, cultures carried not by writing but by melody. The deep ocean is, in its way, a library of songs. Imagine yourself drifting there, your lights extinguished, listening instead of looking. At first it seems silent, then slowly, layers appear. A faint hum in the distance, a series of clicks, sharp and deliberate, a rushing sound, like wind through stone, then low and patient, a whale's call, rolling through your chest like a tide. You realize you are surrounded by presence, even if you cannot see it. The ocean is speaking all the time. There is something humbling about sound in the deep. It reminds us that silence is never absolute, that even in darkness, connection persists. For the animals here, sound is not just sense, it is survival, it is belonging, it is the way they know they are not alone. Each voice is a thread in a vast net, weaving the ocean into one body. We too rely on voices more than we think. In our darkest hours, when vision falters and clarity fades, sometimes a single call, a word from another, a song remembered, even our own breath can anchor us. The deep sea soundscape mirrors that truth. It shows us that presence is not always about sight. Sometimes it is about hearing, about feeling vibrations that remind us of connection even across distance. Perhaps that is the deepest lesson of the ocean's voices, that communication can endure even when light is gone, that across distance, across silence, across the barriers that seem impassable, something still carries. If the ocean's voices can travel for thousands of miles in the dark, what messages might still be reaching us across the distances of our own lives, waiting quietly to be heard? For most of human history, the deep ocean was a place of imagination more than knowledge. We drew sea monsters on maps, sketched serpents at the edges of the world, and wondered what lay below the horizon. The surface was all we could touch, and beneath it lay only mystery. Even now, with satellites orbiting the Earth, we know more about the surface of Mars than the true details of our own seabeds. And yet slowly, with patience and ingenuity, we have begun to explore. The first great step came with machines built not for conquest, but for endurance. In 1960, the bathyscaphe Trieste carried Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh into the Challenger Deep, the deepest known point of the ocean, nearly 11 kilometers down. Their capsule was small, the view through its porthole limited, but the journey was monumental. They reported seeing flatfish and shrimp-like creatures in the silt, proving that even in the greatest depths, life persisted. Later, remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, became our eyes in the dark. Unlike human divers, they could withstand crushing pressure indefinitely, their cameras streaming images from places no person could endure. Through them we discovered hydrothermal vents, black smokers belching plumes of minerals, and the oases of life that gathered there. With their help, we glimpsed anglerfish alive, saw giant squids drifting in their natural world, recorded jellies glowing like lanterns in midnight water. Submersibles, too, carried us into the deep. Alvin, one of the most famous, explored the Galapagos Rift in 1977, revealing vent communities that reshaped biology. In its small sphere, scientists could look out directly into the abyss, seeing not imagination but reality. Even today, Alvin still dives decades after its first missions, carrying explorers into the black. More recently, autonomous vehicles roam the seabed, mapping it with sonar, tracing canyons and trenches, collecting samples in silence. Some glide for months, driven only by programmed paths, surfacing occasionally to send data home. Each one adds another piece to the puzzle of the ocean, revealing contours, currents, and ecosystems previously hidden. Yet despite all this progress, the deep remains largely unknown. Perhaps 80% of the ocean floor has not been mapped in detail. Thousands of species remain undiscovered, their lives unfolding unseen. Each expedition uncovers something new: a fish with transparent skin, a worm with bristles that glow, a jelly pulsing like a glass balloon. We are still beginners here, still sketching outlines on the vast canvas of the abyss. What drives us is not only science but wonder. To send a machine into the depths is to send a dream with it, the dream of connection to a world larger than our own. Each descent is an act of humility, a recognition that Earth is far bigger, stranger, and more alive than our surface lives reveal. The challenges are immense. Pressure tests every bolt, every seam, Darkness demands cameras that can see in near total absence of light. Cold wears down circuits and batteries. Every descent is a dialogue with limits, a test of how far our machines and our imaginations can stretch. And yet we persist, because each glimpse repays the effort 100-fold. Think of the first time cameras captured a living giant squid, drifting in its own realm. For centuries it was a myth, a ghost known only from carcasses and stories. To see it alive, arms unfurled, eyes glimmering in darkness, was to watch a legend breathe. That moment was made possible not by luck, but by persistence, by machines that could wait, watch, endure. Exploration is not conquest, it is listening. Each dive, each survey, each fragment of data is another way of hearing what the deep has always been saying, that it is full, alive, infinite in detail. We do not own it, cannot master it. We can only witness and carry what we see back to the surface like borrowed light. Imagine yourself in one of these submersibles now. The cabin is small, the air recycled, the lights dim. Outside, darkness presses close. Then your beam falls across a coral forest, pale branches swaying, fish darting between them. Later, a plume of vent smoke rises, worms swaying like banners. Farther on, a shark drifts past, its body ancient, unhurried. Each sight is both alien and familiar, both discovery and reminder. The ocean does not need us to exist. We need it to remember how large the world really is. Perhaps that is the greatest gift of exploration, not the data, though it matters, nor the maps, though they are useful. It is the restoration of perspective, to see how small we are and how much is left unknown, to remember that wonder is not finished, that the earth still holds secrets, that we have not yet exhausted its mysteries. If most of our own planet remains unseen, how much of ourselves might also lie undiscovered, waiting patiently for us to explore with the same persistence and care? For all we've discovered in the deep ocean, the glowing creatures, the smoking vents, the ancient corals, the patient sharks, far more remains unknown. The abyss still holds its secrets close, and each expedition uncovers new questions as much as answers. In truth, the deep may always remain partly a mystery, reminding us that the world is larger than our understanding. One of the most persistent puzzles is the identity of many deep-sea sounds. In 1997, hydrophones recorded the bloop, a sound so powerful it was heard across multiple listening stations thousands of kilometers apart. Its frequency resembled that of a living creature, yet its volume seemed impossible for any known animal. Later, many scientists suggested it was the fracturing of ice in Antarctica, but even with that explanation, the mystery lingers, a reminder of how easily the ocean produces voices we cannot place. Other sounds, the upsweep, a long rising series of tones recorded since the late 1980s, and the slow down, a descending noise traced to polar waters, remain unexplained. They remind us that the ocean is not silent, but filled with signals we do not yet understand. Somewhere in the darkness something is moving, cracking, singing or shifting, and we are left listening, guessing, waiting. Biological mysteries abound as well. The giant squid was once a legend, then a reality glimpsed in rare footage. But for every squid captured on camera, how many other giants slip unseen through the trenches? The colossal squid, heavier and more massive than its cousin, has been studied only in fragments, mostly from individuals caught in fishing nets. Its true behavior, its range, its lifespan, all remain questions. Even today it feels more like a rumor of biology than a fully known creature. Then there are the ghostly remains of jelly-like animals called gelatinous zooplankton, some of which can reach extraordinary sizes. A siphonophore discovered in 2020 measured an estimated 45 meters long, making it one of the longest animals ever recorded. But was it a rare giant, or are such creatures common, simply hidden in the dark? The deep sea is vast enough to hide not just one anomaly, but entire populations we have never met. We wonder too about the origin of life itself. Many scientists believe it may have begun not in shallow tide pools, but in hydrothermal vents, where chemistry and energy created the first organic molecules. If true, then the deep is not just a home for strange creatures, it is the cradle of all life on Earth. Each vent we study is not just a community, but a possible echo of our own beginnings. Mysteries also remain about the very shape of the ocean floor. Though satellites can map broad contours, much of the seabed has never been seen directly. Mountains taller than Everest lie hidden beneath the waves. Trenches stretch deeper than our tallest skyscrapers, multiplied tenfold. Entire landscapes, ridges, plains, canyons remain uncharted, each one possibly sheltering life we cannot imagine. To look at a map of the ocean floor is to look at a sketch full of blank spaces. And beyond biology and geology lie questions of connection. How do deep-sea creatures migrate across such vast distances? How do species separated by entire oceans maintain genetic ties? Do currents act as invisible highways, carrying larvae from vent to vent, trench to trench? We know the outlines, but not the details, and in those details may lie the keys to resilience, survival, even future medicines drawn from adaptations we barely understand. The mysteries are not only scientific but also existential. When we lower cameras into the abyss, what do we hope to find? Proof of life's resilience, a mirror of our own strangeness, or perhaps simply reassurance that wonder has not ended, that discovery is still possible on a planet we think we know. Each unanswered question in the deep is also a question about us, about our curiosity, our patience, our willingness to live with uncertainty. Imagine drifting now in a submersible, your light scanning the dark. You know the names of some creatures, the shapes of some vents, the paths of some currents, but outside your beam lies an immensity you cannot grasp. Perhaps in the distance, a sound pulses through the water, a call, a crack, a groan. You do not know its source, you may never know, and yet you listen, because the not knowing is part of the wonder. The deep keeps its secrets, not to deny us, but to remind us that mystery itself has value. In a world where so much feels charted and categorized, the abyss says otherwise. It whispers, not everything is solved, not everything is revealed, and perhaps that is the point. Mystery keeps us awake to the size of the world, to the possibility of surprise, to the humility of being small. If even the earth we live on holds secrets we may never solve, how much more mystery might there be in ourselves, waiting not for answers, but for the patience to live alongside them. The ocean's depths are filled with facts, pressures measured, species named, vents mapped, calls recorded, but when the lights dim and the currents still, something else remains, a feeling. Darkness in the deep is not only the absence of light, it is a presence in itself, a vastness that holds, shelters and transforms. To end our journey here is to ask not only what the deep sea contains, but what it means. At first, darkness seems like emptiness, like the absence of all we depend upon. We are creatures of sunlight, our eyes, our calendars, our lives revolve around it. Without light, we imagine desolation, yet the deep sea shows us otherwise. It reveals that darkness is not barren, but fertile. Bioluminescence flashes in patterns like constellations, forests of coral rise in silence, worms, crabs, sharks, and squids carve out existences in shadow. Darkness is not absence, it is a medium, a stage on which life performs. There is also patience in the dark. A coral may grow for millennia without ever seeing a sunrise. A Greenland shark may drift for centuries, its eyes clouded by parasites, its life slow but enduring. In the absence of hurry, darkness teaches a different rhythm, one measured not in minutes or years but in ages. It shows us that slowness is not failure, but a form of strength. The dark shelters mysteries too. Sounds pulse through it without explanation, shapes pass beyond the beam of lights, glimpsed once and then gone. Trenches still hold landscapes we have not mapped, vents still host creatures unnamed. In a world where so much feels catalogued and finished, the deep's darkness is a reminder that the unknown is still alive, that discovery is not over. The abyss whispers that humility is wisdom, that wonder still waits. And yet darkness also reflects us. When we close our eyes at night, we enter our own kind of ocean, a place without vision, where thoughts drift like currents, where memory and dream weave together. The deep sea's darkness is not so different. It is a mirror of our own inner worlds, those parts of us unseen by others, unlit by certainty, yet alive with movement. Just as creatures flourish there without sunlight, perhaps we too carry lives within that do not need constant brightness to be real. Consider the whale fall. In the dark, what looked like an ending became an oasis, or the black smoker, where heat and chemicals birthed life without sun, or the snailfish, soft and translucent, thriving under pressures we cannot imagine. Again and again, the deep sea teaches the same lesson. Darkness is not the end, it is a beginning, written in another language. Perhaps that is why we are drawn to explore it. even when it resists our machines and blinds our eyes. In its darkness we glimpse possibilities of other worlds, of other ways of being, of other futures for life itself. The abyss does not only hide, it reveals, but slowly, like a dream unfolding only if we are patient enough to stay. Imagine yourself floating there now, lights off, only the quiet hum of your vessel around you. At first you see nothing, then a flicker, a jelly pulsing in blue, then another, a fish's lure glowing red, then silence again. You realize that in the dark, vision comes not as a flood, but as sparks. Each spark feels like a gift, a reminder that presence exists even when hidden. The meaning of darkness then may be this: it is not emptiness but possibility. It asks us to slow, to listen, to notice what we might miss in brightness. It holds life in forms unfamiliar, patient, enduring. It holds questions we may never answer, and in those questions wonder. It reflects us back to ourselves, reminding us that what we do not see can still be alive, still be meaningful, still be worth trusting. And when we return to the surface, carrying these lessons, the night sky itself looks different. Its darkness is no longer just the absence of day, but a reminder of oceans unseen, of worlds alive beneath. Each star overhead becomes like bioluminescence, a light against vastness, a spark in mystery. We realize that darkness, whether in ocean or sky or self, is not to be feared. It is to be honored, entered, listened to. We have traveled far tonight. From the twilight zone to the trenches, from the glowing lure of the anglerfish to the patient drift of the Greenland shark. We've listened to whale songs that carry across oceans and watched forests of coral bloom in eternal night. We've seen how even endings, like the fall of a whale, can become beginnings, and how darkness itself can be not emptiness, but a canvas of possibility. Now as we come to rest, let's return to the question we carried from the beginning. If the deep sea can hold beauty in its shadows, what might we find if we rest in our own? Breathe slowly with me, in and out. The air in your chest rises and falls like a tide. Your body, heavy now, feels as though it too is drifting downward, like a whale's final descent, like a snowflake of life sinking gently into the quiet abyss. Imagine yourself floating at the edge of the midnight zone. Above you, faint glimmers, the last light of the surface. Below you, infinite depth. You are suspended between them, safe, calm, unhurried. As you sink, the water holds you. Pressure increases, but you do not resist. Like the snailfish, you adapt, soften, yield. Your body is buoyant, flexible, at ease. The deep does not crush you, it carries you. Around you, small sparks begin to appear. A flash of blue from a jelly, a pulse of red from a dragonfish, a drift of green from plankton stirred by the current. They are like stars, but nearer, living constellations. Each one pulses as though in rhythm with your breath. You realize you are not alone here. The ocean is alive, even in silence. Whales call in the distance, their voices rolling through your chest. Currents sigh across canyons older than memory. Creatures move with patience, with endurance, with trust in the dark. And in their presence, your own stillness feels natural. Rest deeper. Let your thoughts drift like plankton, carried by slow currents. Let your body grow heavy, as though the seafloor itself is welcoming you into its quiet. You do not need to swim, you do not need to rise. All you need is to drift, to surrender, to be held. In the deep, time itself feels different. A coral may wait centuries to grow a branch. A shark may live for centuries more, its life stretched across ages. There is no rush here, no urgency, no unfinished task. Only patience, only endurance, only rest. The deep whispers, even in darkness you are enough, even in stillness, you are alive. Allow yourself now to close the last of your inner eyes. The world above can wait until morning. Here, in this ocean of quiet, nothing is asked of you but rest. Your body is cradled like a ship in calm water. Your breath is steady, like tides against the shore. Your mind is free to dissolve into dream. And as you slip into sleep, you carry with you the truth the ocean has shown us, that life persists in shadow, that endings bloom into beginnings, that even the heaviest weight can be endured by softening, and that darkness itself can hold beauty. Tomorrow you will wake a little wiser, with these truths still drifting in your chest like gentle currents. But for now, let the ocean have you. Let the darkness fold around you like a blanket. Let your thoughts scatter like sparks of bioluminescence, glowing softly, fading slowly. The deep has no clocks, no alarms, no demands. Only silence, only wonder, only rest. So close your eyes and drift. Let go and sink into the quiet. You are safe. You are carried. You are home. Good night.